All right, we're going to start recording here now. I want to welcome the audience to the Larry Goins interview with Carl Fisher from CamaPlan. This is a follow-up to last month's interview where we covered a lot of topics and people wanted more information on filthy riches and some of the other topics. So we'll do one today and then probably two or three more after the new year. Larry is a friend of mine, and I've known him for probably 15 years or close to it. He's been investing in real estate for almost 3 decades. He was the president of the Metrolina Real Estate Investors Association in Charlotte, North Carolina, helping out other investors. He's an active real estate investor ever since I've known him, and before he goes throughout the United States speaking and training audiences. Larry's also written several books on real estate investing. He works very hard and smart. He's also a co-host with Candace on the Bragg Radio Network, which is the Be Rich and Generous network there in North Carolina. He's got a podcast out there, Investing Brain Pick a Pro, and he interviews experts from real estate and gives his own expert advice as well. So between speaking engagements and mentoring other investments, Larry oversees his daily operations in his investing business that wholesales properties, does seller financing properties, and holds properties for investments. So if you ask him, he's basically a wholesaler, a buy and hold, and does seller financing. So he's got a lot of the bases covered. Ever since I've known Larry, I've known his wife, Pam. They have 2 children, Linda and Noah, both great kids. He also has a granddaughter, Ember, and a grandson, Keegan. So that keeps Larry busy a lot of the times that I've gone down and visited him in Charlotte area. And they're a member of the New River Community Church in Lake Wylie, South Carolina. His personal business motto, which I really like, is people and principles before profits. So Larry, let's pick up kind of where we left off last time for all the people that had questions. Can you go through Filthy Riches and just tell us everything you know about it and how it is and what you think our audience should know on that?
Sure, absolutely. Let me start with a little overview because some people are probably saying filthy riches. What the heck is that? Right? So Filthy Riches is a model that I didn't invent this model by any means, okay? But I do like to think that I had significant contribution to perfecting it. Filthy Riches is a model I originally learned from some big hedge funds that were buying dirt cheap houses nobody else wants, but they were buying them in bulk. Tax lien, tax deed sales, bulk sales from banks and asset managers, and they would buy these properties for $2,000, $3,000, $5,000. And then what they would do is they would turn around and sell them on a land contract for about 3 to 6 times what they paid for them with owner financing, right? And they would get about $1,500 down, and then they would set their payments at about $300 to $500 a month, something like that, for 10 years. But the problem with the way that they were doing it, the big hedge funds and some of the other guys were doing it, was because they were buying in bulk, Carl, they were buying the bottom of the barrel. I mean, it was scraping the bottom of the barrel. These were houses that they couldn't sell anywhere else. Realtors couldn't sell them on the MLS, so they would eventually pull them off and bulk them. And because they were selling them in bulk, they sold them with what's called a quit claim deed, right? So there were typically back taxes, liens, judgments, code violations on these properties. And sometimes it would take 3 to 6 months to even just get the deed to the property. So what I did, I love that model. I love being able to buy a property for $5,000 or $10,000 and then turn around and selling it with owner financing on a land contract and selling it for 3 to 6 times what you paid for it and get the cash flow. So what I did is I took that model and I tightened it up a significant amount. And what I did was I started buying these properties off the MLS and from individual sellers. So instead of buying a property that's got code violations, back taxes, liens, judgments, the roof is leaking, I would be very selective and buy them onesie twosie, right? One at a time. And I would pick the ones that I wanted to buy. And the cool thing is, because you're turning a property into a note, you can literally buy these anywhere in the country. I have students in the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, China, Israel, the Philippines, Ireland, Chile, the Bahamas, and Denmark buying these properties in the United States, and they're getting triple digit returns by buying a house for $5,000 or $10,000 and then turn around and selling it for 20, 30, 40, $50,000 with owner financing. And the cool part is you're not a landlord. You don't have to deal with tenants, trash, termites, and toilets. You don't have to worry about taxes, insurance, repairs, maintenance, and property management. You don't have to worry about that at all, because you are the bank. You are turning a property into a note. And that is the beautiful thing about it. And because we're buying low price properties, we're getting huge returns. You know this, Carl, you could buy a $5,000 house and sell it for 30,000, but you can't buy a $50,000 house and sell it for 300,000. The math just doesn't work, right? That's the beautiful thing, the low price properties.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just say, if anybody has questions on what Larry's saying, just post them in the questions or the chat box, and we will try to get to them at the end of Larry talking about this stuff. And one of the questions is, what do you mean turning a house into a note? I guess you skipped over that part of it there, but that's one of the questions we got.
Sure. Let me answer that. Let's say I buy a house for $10,000, okay? Because some people can't even imagine buying a house for $5,000. Although I bought two this month, right? I bought two for $4,500 each this month. But anyway, let's say you buy a house for $10,000. Well, I'm going to turn around and market and advertise that property for $29,900 or $39,900. Let's say $29,900. I'm going to market it for $29,900 with owner financing. I'll get somebody that'll put a couple of $1,000s down, and then I will finance the balance. Let's say I finance the balance for 10 years at 9% interest, and they put $2,000 down. So I'm going to finance, $28,000, and the payment's going to be around $364 a month. Right? So now, instead of having 10 in it, I have 8 in it, plus closing cost, of course. But I'm going to have 8 in it, and then I'm going to get $364 a month coming in for the next 10 years. Does that help?
Yeah, I think that makes it clear. So basically, you're buying the house, and then you're selling it quickly, and you've got a marketing program that maybe we can touch on here. People are going to say, well, how do you sell it so quickly and get that? But right. I'll let you finish up, and we'll get to the questions at the end, Larry. I don't want to keep you off of your theme on what we're going, how it all works.
Oh, no. It's okay. It's all good. So basically, if I bought that house for 10, let's just leave closing cost out of it to keep it simple, okay? I know closing cost is going to change the yield a smidge, but let's just leave it out to keep the numbers simple. If I bought this house for 10, I sold it for 30, I got 2 down, I financed 28, that payment is going to be $354.69 a month, okay? I said $364, I misspoke. It's $354.69 a month. So then if you go back in to your financial calculator, and I know, Carl, you've taught your people well how to use a financial calculator. If they go in and use that financial calculator and change the 28,000 to 8,000 and then figure the interest, it's going to come up to 52.9% return on your money. So
Yeah,
almost a 53% yield on your money. Now, if I bought that house for $5,000, now I'm going to change that number to 3,000, right? I'm going to change that number to 3,000, right? So I'm going to change it to 3, and then I'm going to figure for the interest, and it's going to be 141% return on my money.
sure, because you're getting $4,000 a month, and at that point you only have 2,000. I mean, $4,000 a year, and
Right.
You only have 2,000 into the thing from the start, and you're going to get that for the next 10 years. So, uh,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. I mean, you could almost say it's infinite at that point. But I understand where you're coming from, and I think that's great. How do you get rid of the houses so quickly? I guess people
Well,
just
you
how
know
many?
what's funny? Anybody that's out there in the real estate market right now trying to sell houses, I guarantee you, if you've got a house out there that you're trying to sell right now for cash, you get called all the time of people that say, "Hey, will you sell or finance it for me? Will you lease option it to me? Will you let me rent to own?" Right? So it's actually much easier to sell these houses with owner financing than it is to sell them with cash. Now, what we do, Carl, every time we get a house under contract that we're going to owner finance, we've got these little signs. They're 18 by 24 inches. They're double sided. They have an arrow on them, and the arrow says owner financing. And then it has a dollar amount and the phone number. And what we do is we'll put 29.9, 2000. I don't even put the amount down, okay? I don't even put the amount down because if I only really want 2,000, what if somebody says they have 5,000 to put down? I don't want to turn it down, right? So we put 29.9 owner financing with the phone number, and the phone rings off the hook. You can put the bandit signs out. We always, always, always put about 25 bandit signs out for each and every house. You put them in the neighborhood, you put them in front of Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, convenience stores, Home Depot, and Lowe's. And the phone rings off the hook. You can also put them on Facebook market groups. There's groups like, let's say the house is in Charlotte, North Carolina, right? And which, by the way, I hadn't bought a house in Charlotte, North Carolina in over 5 years, and I'm in the Charlotte, North Carolina MSA. I buy in the smaller towns outside of the large MSAs. Okay. So let's say I'm in Shelby, North Carolina, which is about 30 minutes outside of Charlotte. If I buy in Shelby, North Carolina, I'm going to find a Shelby, North Carolina Facebook market group, like a buy sell group where people buy and sell stuff, right? And I'm going to post my property there. Owner financing, why rent when you can own? Payments less than rent. Start throwing your money away. Payments to fit your budget. And then I'm going to start getting calls and I'm going to qualify the person, right? Are you looking for a house to live in? Are you looking for a rental? You know, how much money do you have to put down? How much can you handle per month? And then I go from there. Pretty cool, huh?
No, real cool. So I guess the other part is on this. People that can get into a house relatively quickly with $2,000 or $5,000 down, there's probably not a lot of those things out there, and the financing is almost guaranteed with you based on your vetting of the people that call. So I can understand why you get a lot of that. What's the condition of the houses, Larry, that you get like
Well,
that?
that's a really good question. The guys who I learned how to do this from that are doing the big hedge funds, those houses a lot of times they have code violations, they have back taxes, they've got holes in the roof's leaking, the house is flooded in the basement or crawl space is flooded. You know, they're just in really bad shape. But what I do is I pick and choose houses. And here's what I look for, okay? This is very, very important, guys. The house needs to be either livable or close to livable. It doesn't need to be, it doesn't have to be livable, but it needs to be close to livable. Also, the house cannot need any major repairs. For example, I can't sell or finance to a house. I can't sell or finance a house to somebody that's going to move into it and put a couple $1,000s down if the roof is leaking. A roof might cost them $3 or $4 or $5,000, right? I can't sell or finance a house if, if the kitchen's ripped out, right? There's no kitchen cabinets. They're going to have to spend a few $1,000s getting cabinets to put in, right? Cabinets, countertops, sink, all that stuff, right? I can't sell or finance a house if the heat pump is gone, right? So you can't sell or finance a house to somebody that's going to pay you a few thousand down, and then they've got to go spend another $5,000 or $10,000 at one time just to get the house livable. You can't do that, right? But I've sold many houses with owner financing that maybe they needed a water heater, they needed paint, they needed carpet, they needed a vanity in the bathroom, it needed landscaping, it needed the back deck reworked. I've seller financed many houses like that, but you just can't overwhelm them with giving you all their down payment money and then they got to go spend another 5 or 10,000 on a major repair. You just can't do that. And you do have to be a little selective, right? And also, I don't buy in the war zones, right? A lot of people say, well, you're only going to find these houses in the war zone. Man, last month I bought a house in Shelby for $5,000. It was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house on 4 acres of land, right? I paid $5,000 for that house. And that house, all that had to be done was everything had to be moved out of it. It was trashed. The furniture was there. The refrigerator was there. The food was still there in the cabinets. Everything was there. It just had to be cleaned out.
No, that I remember now. You told me you don't like to do rehab, so
I hate these.
yeah. Oh, so that's good. So, how many of your people actually move in, and how many investors buy from you, Larry? Do you have those numbers?
Great point. Great point. The vast majority of the people are going to move in. However, I have sold many houses to investors, right? Because that's the reason you want to look. And when you're analyzing these deals, you want to pull rent comps. Because if the house that I'm getting ready to sell will have a payment of $354 a month, but the rent comps are 500 to 600, I could sell that house to an investor, and an investor could probably put down $5,000. I got most or all of my money back, and then they're making payments to me, and they're going to do a little sweat equity and get it ready to rent, right? Because you can't rent a house that needs a water heater to a tenant. You can't do that. There's landlord tenant laws, right? You can't rent a house to a tenant that maybe the rails broke off the deck or something and it's 4 feet off the ground. That's not safe. Got to provide as a landlord what's called fit and safe housing. But I could sell these houses to landlords as is, and then they do a little sweat equity, because there's a lot of people out there that want to learn how to do real estate, but they can't qualify for a loan. Now, if you're using your CamaPlan account, make sure you don't go out there and drive the nails yourself. Okay, right, Carl?
Absolutely.
You need to have a handyman, right? Have a handyman go out there and do a little bit of the work and get it rent ready. But you can't do that work yourself using your self-directed CamaPlan account.
No, what you want to do is spend that time finding another $5,000 house, because that's what's going to make you the money, and the money you can use and pay for those handymen and
That's
things.
true. That's true. And we buy all of ours over the phone, Carl. I've done deals in 12 different states, and we buy all of them over the phone. We don't ever leave the office. And a lot of people think, Larry, if you're doing 10 or 15 of these a month, man, you got to have a huge team. I am the acquisition manager on every single one of my deals. I'm the acquisition manager, and Candace, who co-hosts the Bragg Radio show, she's the lead manager, and I got one guy that sells them. He does all the selling. He sells all of our houses, and then I've got a girl, Lorraine, and she does all of our closings.
Yeah, but you're one of the best people I know that can leverage technology and websites and uh, things like that. If you don't mind sharing some of those assets that you have, the websites and and how you look at the houses, etc.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me just give you a quick rundown of how our model works, Carl. Your people are going to love this, okay? So we send out direct mail, okay? We send out about 25,000 pieces a month. We break them up into 4 weekly mailings. So we mail out 25,000 postcards a month, and the phone rings off the hook. They automatically go into our CRM. We have a special number for all of our marketing, like for a Facebook marketing, LarryBuysHouses.com, GabbyBuysHouses.com, and Bandit Signs, and our direct mail. So when a call comes in, it automatically generates a contact record in our Podio, and it automatically creates a task for Candace to call that person back if she didn't answer the phone live, to call them back and to get some preliminary information, and then she puts me on the phone. I am the closer. Actually, in our Podio system, it literally says Candace is the junior hammer and I'm the hammer, right? That's what it says in our Podio system. But so she sets up the lead. She transfers it to me, live transfer if she can. If not, she creates a task for me to call them back. It's already got all the pedigree of the house in there, the bedrooms, the bath, how much work it needs, when the last time the roof was replaced, the last time the kitchen was remodeled, last time the bath was remodeled, all that good stuff. And then I call them and I make an offer over the phone, right? Now, if I get it under contract over the phone, here's what I tell the person. And Carl, you're going to love this. I could be talking about a house in Shelby, North Carolina, but the seller lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I'm going to tell that seller, I'm going to say, look, are you going to be home this afternoon? Yeah, I'll be home. Great. I've got a person who's going to be in your area. How about I have them stop by in a couple hours, right? It's 12:30 now, 12:20. How about I have them stop by around 3 o'clock this afternoon and get the paperwork started? I've got a simple one-page standard real estate offer to purchase that just says I'm buying your house for $10,000 cash, as is, where is, no warranties, no guarantees, and I'm going to pay 100% of the closing costs. Can I have somebody stop by your house this afternoon? What's your address? And I'll get their address. And then I log in to my mobile notary service and I create a job order. It costs 75 bucks. And I upload my contract. And literally within 2 hours, I can have somebody at their house anywhere in the country. I don't care if the house is in Dubuque, Iowa, and they live in Jackson, Mississippi. I can have somebody at their house within 2 hours getting the contract signed. And here's the best part. If it's an owner occupant property and I'm sending them to their house where they live, the mobile notary will even take pictures inside and out for me as well. They'll take pictures inside and out. And so I already have the pictures. If not, I've got a local person here that'll go take pictures. And I also have national companies that will go anywhere in the country. And for about 30 or 40 bucks, they will actually take pictures of the house inside and out. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, that's really interesting how you can do that. And you'll share that information with people if they contact you.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. All they got to do is just reach out. In fact, all that stuff is in our training, our Filthy Riches training about the mobile notary services that we've worked with and got a national discount for our students. Got them to agree to take pictures of houses. We've got a couple of different photo companies that'll go out and take photos of properties anywhere in the country, and we even have services that'll go out and put out signs for you. Remember I said we put out 25 owner financing signs per house? We got services that'll do that for you. So there's all different kind of services out there. How you like that?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that provides a lot of insight and saves the legwork for a lot of people if they want to get into something like that, you know. So how about the percentage? Do you know what the percentage is of people that buy and resell, or buy and hold it and live in it, or buy it and rent it?
I don't know a specific percentage, But I will tell you, the vast majority of the people that I seller finance houses to are going to live in the property, right? They're going to live in the property. I do seller finance some. I've done a lot over the years to investors, but the vast majority of the people who respond to the marketing are going to buy it to live in it. And if you do that, you can typically sell the house for higher. You get higher payments, and it works out better all the way around.
That no, that's great. And how many people pay you off early? Uh,
That's a really good question, Carl. Um, there's a lot of people. The big question that they really want to know is how many people default, right? So a lot of people want to know, well, what happens if they default? Well, a lot of people think that's a bad thing, and don't get me wrong, I don't wish ill will on anybody because bad things happen to good people. But if they default, it's actually the best thing that can happen because all you got to do is sell the house again. You get another down payment, and then the clock starts ticking again, right? And the less you have in the house, the higher your yield. I bought a house about 6 years ago, Carl. This is an example I use a lot. It's just one that comes to mind. I bought a house about 6 or 7 years ago, and I had $55,000 in that house. The first time I sold it for 79.9. I got five down. Second time I sold it for 89.9, and I got 10 down. They lived there about a year and a half, and I even did a loan modification with them to lower the payment for them for 6 months to help them stay in. But they eventually said, we got to move out. But she even told me, she said, my best friend wants to buy this house. Will you sell it to her? Well, I did. I had to sell it for the same price, 89.9, because she knew what her best friend bought it for. But she only put three down. So she didn't stay there long, and she moved out. And the last time I sold it, I raised the price again to 99.9, and I got $10,000 down, right? I collected 5, 3, 10, and another 10. I collected $28,000 in down payments. Plus, I collected over $36,000 in payments over 6 or 7 years, right? I've collected over 60 some $1,000, and I still have 808 a month coming in for the next 20 years, right? So a lot of people think it's a bad thing if they move out. It's actually the best thing that can happen. Well, it's not the best thing that can happen. Here's from best to worst what can happen, okay? The absolute best thing that can happen when you buy and sell or finance a house is that they refinance and pay you off early. That's the absolute best thing that can happen. I will tell you this, of all the deals I've done, it's very rare that it happens. It's not going to happen very often, okay? It's very rare. So the second best thing that can happen is they default and you get to sell it again, right? That's the third best thing that can, or second best thing that can happen is they stop paying you, you get the house back, and you sell it again and you get another down payment. Now, the third best thing that can happen when you do this, the absolute third best thing that can happen is they just make their payments. They just make their payments on time. And the worst thing that could happen is they stop paying, you let them stay, but you modify the loan, right? You lower their payment for them for 3 to 6 months, right? You lower their payment for them for 3 to 6 months. It lowers your yield for a while. Now you can either forgive those payments, those back payments, or you can just add them on to the end of the loan, whatever you want to do. Either way works just fine. So that's the best, the worst of everything that can happen.
um, Thanks, Larry. I think that's a pretty good summary of all the possibilities that are there. But for people that need money, and I think last time we talked, that need the money now, can you give us a little information on how you sell the note also,
Sure, sure. Now, these
or
little
cash
notes,
out of the deed?
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of people that need cash now. They don't have 5 or 10,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 laying around to invest. So you need cash now. Well, guess what? There's a lot of people out there. I mean, Carl, you've got, you know this from CamaPlan. You've got people out there with money looking for deals, don't you?
Absolutely, we do.
Yeah, yeah, you got people just, they've got money sitting in their account and they're waiting on deals to come up so they can find a good investment. Well, if you've got this $28,000 note we talked about creating, you've got a $28,000 note bringing in 354 a month every month. Now, that note has a value. Now, a lot of note buyers out there will buy a note at 8, 10, 12% yield. But these little cheap notes, you're going to need to sell them at a higher yield because they have a higher risk, right? If somebody bought a house for 30 grand and they put $2,000 down, that's not even hardly 10%. You're probably going to have to sell that note, right, for $15,000. That, just to give you an example, right? You could sell that note at a 12% yield. You could sell that note at a 15% yield. You could even sell that note at an 18% yield, right? If you have a $28,000 note at 9% for 10 years, and that note's bringing in 354.69 a month, if you sold that note at an 18% yield, you'd sell that note for $19,684. And when you subtract out the $3,000 that you have in it, you still made $16,000, even if you had to sell that note at a 24% yield, right? You could sell that note for $16,087, and your note buyer is going to get a 24% yield. Now, your note buyer needs a better yield. They're not going to buy these notes at 10 or 12% because they do have higher risk. There are lower notes. They can't deploy as much money. So they're going to need to buy multiple notes from you. But I know guys that sell these notes at 15, 18, 20, sometimes 24% yield all the time. And there's investors that love these types of deals.
No, that was one of the things that I thought was good, and I saw some of your students, with the 5,000 selling them for 16,000, and they, said that was the best thing that they've done, and they got very good at it. Um,
Right.
and that might be one of the other scenarios that are in those four that you mentioned, what could happen and what's the best thing. But that's not a bad setup for you in that case. If you put 5,000 into it and you get 16,000, within a month or two, you've tripled your money, and that's a great return.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
And the one thing I do want to mention, Carl, especially to the people selling the notes, it's very important that you're not trying to sell a note for the retail value of the house. In other words, if I buy a house for 10 grand and I turn around and sell it for 30 grand and I'm trying to sell that note for 15,000, that can't be a 10 or $15,000 house that you're selling the note for 15,000. It needs to legitimately be have a value of $30,000. You've just negotiated a deep discount. And I know it can be done. I mean, a lot of people say, yeah, but how am I going to buy a $30,000 house for $10,000? Man, I bought 6 houses uh, together as a package just last month, and I paid $35,000 for all 6 of them. How much is that a house? 35,000 divided by 6, it's like $5,833 a piece. So, and they were all currently rented for $350 a piece, right? They're all currently rented for $350. So 350 times 6, they're bringing in $2,100 a month. I just happened to find a don't want a landlord that was sick and tired of being sick and tired and dealing with it, right? And he's like, I'm ready. What do you give me for it, right? I mean, he wanted a lot more than that for it. I ended up paying him $35,000. So you can buy these houses, but the main thing is if you're selling these notes, the houses must be worth at least more than what you're selling the note for to an investor. In fact, I tell all my investors, I won't sell you a note unless you're in it no more than 75% of the value of the property.
No, that makes a lot of sense. You've been doing this for decades, Larry, the whole investing, and I've seen your commitment to work and the hours you put in. Um, but if you were taking somebody new to this, maybe somebody in the audience, how long would it take them to get up to speed using, I'm assuming you've got to set your system up because I'm sure you've got buyers and sellers on both sides because you're working it every day. So if somebody, you said you talked about a course, if somebody took your course, would they be able to do a couple of these in a year or 5 years or?
Well, it's really funny you asked that because I do have students. I mean, you've seen my office. I've got my big training room out here lined with hundreds and hundreds of testimonials around all four walls, framed in pictures of students who have gone on and done deals, and some of them get their first deal in 2 weeks, some of them in 3 weeks. But I tell most people you're going to need to spend, it's probably going to take you 60 to 90 days to get your first deal. And that's because, number one, I don't know the level of experience of the person who's opening up a home study course, right? I have no idea. I don't know if they could barely spell real estate or they own 300 rentals already. I really just don't know. So I tell people it's probably going to take you 60 to 90 days to get your first deal bought, sold, and money in the bank. Have I had people do it in 3 weeks? Yes. Have I had a lot of people do it in 4 to 6 weeks? Absolutely. But I tell most people it's going to take you eight to 12 weeks to get your first deal bought, sold, and money in the bank. And I try to organize all my training where, regardless of a person's level of experience, it's not going to overwhelm the newbie, and there's going to be plenty of good information there for the experienced investor that already has money. Because I tell people there's a lot of investors out there that use this filthy riches model to generate quick cash, buy, sell the note. And then there's also a lot of them out there that have like CamaPlan accounts, and they just want to buy in and create the notes and buy and sell the property and keep the notes in their self-directed CamaPlan account.
No, I appreciate that, and I think we've got plenty of clients that have done that. And we're running out of time here because I said we'd be about a half an hour, but it looks like we've done it. Talk about buying houses by email because that was one of the questions that came up. Is that really true, or do you just use email for the initial contact? How does that?
Well, that's a really, really good point. And yes, I bought many houses by email where we send out emails, whether it be with individual sellers, because we always try to ask for their email address. We bought houses by text. We bought houses by email. We bought houses through realtors with email, where we send a realtor a link to one of their listings and say, "Hey, offer 26% on these two, or on this house," right? And um, and then they'll email us back a counter offer, and we go back and forth and end up coming to a number, and then they send us the stuff. I used to tell people, Carl, I do all my business by phone, fax, FedEx, email, and internet. Now it's just phone, email, and internet. We don't even use FedEx anymore. It's all digital signatures like DocuSign or Right Signature, and we don't have to use FedEx anymore, right? And we don't have to use fax anymore, a fax machine. People are like, what is a fax machine, right? They don't even use it anymore.
Yeah, no, I used to have one in my house, and people used to think that was cool, but
Yeah,
now,
I
yeah,
know.
yeah, 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 nobody uses faxes, I don't think, anymore on this stuff. I pulled up your contact information on your Filthy Riches website. What else should our listeners learn, or how can they learn more about this model called Filthy Riches? I know that, this webinar isn't really enough. What would you suggest they do next?
Well, if they go to that website that you're going to give them, I guess you'll either have it in the show notes or give it out in a minute. But if they go to that website, they can watch a webinar that's specifically about the model and the techniques and strategies, and it goes into detail showing exactly what to do and how to do it. And they can watch that webinar and check that out.
Okay. All right. Can you see my screen or not?
Yeah, I do. That's our main website, LarryGoins.com. If they want to click on that blue link, click on that top blue banner right there. That'll take you right to Filthy Rich's webinar right there.
Okay. So they can opt into that.
Exactly. They can check out that webinar, and it'll give them detailed instructions on exactly how the Filthy Riches model works, what to do, and exactly how to do it.
Okay. That's a good picture of you in there. You look a little younger there too. Before you had grandkids, your hair was all black.
You know
Uh,
what's funny? You want to hear a funny story about that? I didn't have enough light in there. So I was in my home office and I was recording that at night, and I had my hat on, but you could see how the bottom of my face is a little light. I had my phone sitting in front of my computer angled up with the flashlight on, so it would be a little brighter.
well, you've always been ingenious with the stuff you've come up with over the years.
Well, thanks. Appreciate it.
So, all right. What other websites should we mention? Or they've got this phone number here, an educational consultant, and your office hours are 9 to 5. What else should we tell them about you, Larry?
Let's
Do they
see.
want to follow you on Facebook or?
Yeah. You could watch our brag show. We do a brag show on Facebook Live. It's facebook.com/Larry H. Goins. And just follow me there on Facebook. And Candace and I do a Facebook Live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. And we also have another one called Brain Picker Pro. You've been on that a few times over the years. And I don't know if we recorded one recently or not, but if not, we got to get you back on. And so, yeah, we do that where I interview other people. And just our website, LarryGoins.com, has a lot of free education.
Are you like the president and always twittering or not?
Yeah, no, I'm not twittering all over my Facebook anymore.
Okay. All right, Larry. I appreciate that. If anybody has any questions, feed them into the question line here or the chat, and we'll try to get Larry to answer them. And one of the questions, what if there aren't any houses like this where a person lives? I guess, if you can reiterate a little bit about buying stuff all over the place where you bought them.
Absolutely. In fact, I've got a lot of students on the West Coast, Carl, out there where the prices look like phone numbers, and they're buying these houses all over in the Southeast and the Midwest and the Northeast. I mean, there's a lot of these houses around in a lot of different places. We even have a lot of students, out of the country that are buying these houses.
Okay, that's cool. Let me. At this point, we don't have any more questions that popped up, so maybe we did a better job. But sometimes we get questions after the show, and that's why we did this. We are going to do another show with you on buying houses with HUD homes, because I know you're probably one of the premier experts in that in the country. From some of the things I've heard, you're telling HUD where they're making mistakes and how they're supposed to be doing it. So I think we'll do a series with you and give you a little bit more time if we can in January. Will that work for you?
Absolutely, man. That'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, I did write a book about buying HUD houses for pennies on the dollar, and I'd be glad to do that.
Okay. Larry, thank you very much. I appreciate all the time and effort. We'll have this posted on our website and obviously give you access to it as we have been recording it. And if you have any words of wisdom or holiday inspiration, can you give it to us now before we sign off?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of people listen to a lot of podcasts like this and get on webinars and stuff like that. But the only thing that's going to make you any money is by taking action. You have to take action. A lot of people, I mean, I even get some students sometimes that say, "Hey, Larry, your course don't work." I say, "Of course it doesn't. It's a course. You have to work it, right? The only place that success comes before work is in the dictionary, and you have to go out and make it happen. And if you think there's going to be some kind of magic pill or some kind of a new gadget or gizmo or software that's going to flood your bank account with money, you're absolutely wrong. The quickest shortcut to real estate I ever learned was the day I realized there is no quick shortcut to real estate.
Well, that seems like sound advice and kind of my learning over 40 years of it. So thank you very much, Larry. I really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you in December. I mean
Sounds
September,
great.
January. Sorry.
Oh, sounds great. Thanks a lot, Carl. I appreciate it. You tell Vicky and everybody, hey, okay?
Will do. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.